All right.
Say okay. Yes.
All right. We are here with actually our first repeat video interview at Masters Radio.
Wow.
The esteemed Lawrence Gowan, who is on the screen with me now, was our first video interview at Masters Radio, and we're so delighted that we didn't scare him away.
Oh, no,
Yeah, back for round
we're
two.
turning it into a series, Adam.
That's right. I think it's a great idea. That's an excellent idea.
Mini series.
So,
Anyway.
Masters Radio is building that music experience community we've spoken of before, focused on artists like you who were first popular more than 20 years ago. We've learned to fill some gaps in the experience for both the artists and their fans, like providing benefits to artists and the staff that works with them, because it is all about the artists. Also providing some real-time engagement opportunities like one-on-one conversations with fans, interviews like this, both live and on virtual. And one of the questions I always ask artists is, what can we do with an online community to make it really the best it could be with the technology that has come that's new, but also your tremendous background. You've been doing this decades. With combining those two things and the reality that we have now, what are the things that you would look for in a community of fans and artists that would support you and the other artists that you probably know of and work with?
Well, basically just expanding upon the things that are already available. You could curtail it to perhaps guests that have been on your show, especially ones that have been on more than once. You could you could always, just to hook up the links to their material is probably the most effective thing of all. If people are interested and want to find out more, more or less like the way a publisher or anyone else just tries to spread the word. As far as the monetary side of it, I really have no I have no expertise in that area. I just know that it's nice when money comes in the mail. So I guess that's something I'd have to leave entirely to you. But basically, just hooking up people, as many as you can, with the artist's music, and whether they can find it on the various streaming platforms or actually being able to put it on yourself. That could be great.
That's precisely what we're doing. And you mentioned the monetary side of it. One of the things that I recall, it's a sensitive issue for you and others as well, is that the label so much kept you guys constrained.
Yes.
In either by geography or by genre or niche, what have you. Yep. We're in the process of getting it U.S. legal. And the funny thing is, I think it may already be Canada legal, a crowdfunding platform on your artist page. So, for example, on the Styx page itself, people could actually contribute to what'll be a new album, what'll be the next tour, and actually doing, and that way we're removing the intermediaries, just like we did in music distribution. We're also removing the intermediaries from capital distribution, and so hopefully that'll mean that artists can raise, and we know that they can. Radiohead proved it decades ago. They could put out there and say, "Hey, buy our album for whatever price you want." Funny thing was, they paid about the usual list price.
Yeah.
So it works. It genuinely works. So it'll be one of the things that we have as well as the benefits.
Yeah. Best of luck. It's a great endeavor.
Thank you. So one of the things that I saw is that people are able to purchase it both at the event and also at digital outlets, and probably it couldn't be a digital outlet for this, but in record stores, a vinyl for this Renegades and Jukebox Heroes tour.
Yes, that's right. I was really really pleased to see that. Right from the very first show, I saw a bunch of vinyl copies of the album. And it's unique to this tour. It's a tour memento, really, more or less. Blending us with Styx with Foreigner and I think that we actually did this many years ago. In 2000, we did the first time we did a kind of a colossal double build tour with REO Speedwagon. We did an album called Arch Allies, and it was live, recordings from that tour, though. Okay, so, but the idea of two bands being on one album and combining their the experience that the audience have had on that evening, and giving them that experience, in the form of of basically a souvenir of the show, I think is a great idea, and it sold like crazy, like unbelievably, actually. Yeah, yeah,
It seems to really work well. Just yesterday, no, 2 days ago, I was on the phone doing this with Matt Scannell of Vertical Horizon.
uh-huh.
Um, and their album is 25 years old. The only album they really did hit big with, 25 years old. And
Right.
they're doing a vinyl issue of it, and they're hitting the road to do a tour to support it. They've no new music out. Well, they have new music out, but it's 2018. Um, so they're really just focusing on promoting a vinyl, as Matt said, it was an intentional music experience when you got your vinyl. You had to
Yeah.
go buy it. You had to
Well,
bring it home
yes.
without
Well,
bending it.
well, it's the tactile experience with music where we have the human element comes into it where you're actually holding something. It
Mhm.
sounds so simple, but it's almost like it's an art form in and of itself that is something has been lost from that in the digital world. The convenience of the digital thing is fabulous,
Mhm.
obviously, because you can take it with you anywhere. It's not a big deal. But the contemplative aspect of yeah, taking a record and listening to it in its entirety, usually 40 minutes, roughly, is a contemplative kind of journey what's the term? Yeah, like a theater of the mind that kicks in, and
Right.
that's something that's been lost very much so on the on internet and streaming and et cetera, et cetera. But we've made great gains, and we're catching up with the things we may have overlooked along the way, and a great vinyl album, and just like I say, holding that disc and the artwork in your hands does enhance the experience.
Yeah, it doesn't indeed. It makes it it makes it not background music, but as Matt said, and you just
That's
alluded to,
right.
it's an intentional experience sitting down
Yes,
with the record to listen to it. You had to
that's
get up and turn it over 15, 20 minutes in.
that's a great
So you
way.
had to sort of be in the room. Yeah.
That's a
Um,
great way to put it. It's an intentional experience rather than a passive
yeah.
kind of thing that you're just kind
Right.
of click.
Indeed, indeed. So when we last spoke, I think you were playing somewhat smaller things, and it was all sticks, smaller events. These big combined event things work. I heard. I think it was Motley Crue and Def Leppard did one together. It was their biggest selling one ever, and it was 20 years after they
Yeah,
were selling out these arenas on their own.
yeah,
So I'm leaning toward the idea that particularly artists that aren't quite where you guys are with Styx, that are a level, a level below only because of economic viability. I mean, they call it, musicianship, musicianship, but they're just not getting seen, and we're trying to fix that by putting together some mashups of some groups that sort of make sense to
mm,
try to get them out there in front of a larger group, larger audiences. Our friends at Foghat, for example, are great examples of it. And again, no slight to the music. The first time in 50 years, they had a record charting well on Billboard.
yeah,
So, I mean, they're writing as good music as they ever wrote.
yeah.
But it just try to find a way they can fill a 12,000 seat arena,
Mm,
is challenging with one band. So,
yes.
we're trying to work to put together a couple of other groups
Well,
that would work very well for that.
the reality of the way the world has gone now, if people want to see a colossal, big rock show, it works on a lot of levels. First of all, you're going to get more of your money's worth, and ticket prices are not inexpensive. You're going to get and on this particular tour, you're getting 4 hours straight of classic rock that so many people know, and usually, Foreigner fans that have never seen Styx, they get that experience. Styx fans that have never seen Foreigner, they get that experience. And then there are John Waite fans who's the opener on this tour, and they absolutely, they might be seeing the two bands that they never had seen before, or seeing John Waite for the first time. So you've got, like last night we played completely sold out arena, the Honda Center in Anaheim here in California, and right to the top of the roof and all around the bands, and just people getting 4 hours straight of classic rock. I enjoy it too myself because I listen to the other bands, and I think that's that's a great step as far as giving people value for their time and for and reflecting back music that has meant so much to them for so many decades.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And are you seeing, as we spoke before, a wide range of ages in there,
All
or do they
ages.
tend to be the folks who grew up with the music?
Literally all ages. Honestly, I can tell some people are there with their kids that are like maybe 10 years old, but there are people there of their own volition and under their own supervision that are from, say, roughly 20 to 40. That's about half the audience. And they obviously weren't born when the biggest records of the classic rock era were made, but they have embraced this music and they have allowed it to come into their lives, and it's become a concurrent experience for them, very similar to what it was for those that grew up on it. They seem to be the most um, adamant and the most devoted to the newer things that we put out. So I think it's among that number that, for example, Crash of the Crown getting to #1 in the Billboard album chart, rock album chart, is due to their is due to their devotion to it and wanting something that is, you know, in concurrent with their actual lives rather than the musical journey that they've taken to pull those things from the past and bring them into their world.
I think, yeah, I think part of it might be the currency of something like Crash of the Clown of the Crown.
Yeah.
Can't speak today because it was new on their watch, where the other stuff they sort of had to go back to. But listening to it, it's a Styx album.
Hang on, I do have Clash of the Clowns is actually a great title. I'm just going to keep that.
Yeah, by all means, take that down. Yes,
I kind of like that.
Oh God! If I do meet you, please don't tell anybody else in the band I said that.
It will remain our secret. That's the great thing about the internet. Nobody else gets to see it. Oh no!
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but to listen to Crash and then to listen to Crystal Ball. Speaking of, hopefully meeting you guys, that song Crystal Ball. I'm not sure if they're going to play it on the 24th. I hope they do. That was one of the two songs that made me want to be a singer.
Yeah.
Steve Walsh of Kansas did another one of them, and roughly around the same time. But they were that kind of music is timeless.
It is.
And to be able to pull that out again in a record 30, 40 years after that sound first came out. And then I listened to you doing on YouTube fairly recently, going through and taking apart Mr. Roboto, which I will frankly tell you, I thought that was one of the worst things that Styx could have done at the time it came out. At the time it came out, probably because I was young, wasn't prepared for a band making a major shift in direction. And I ran a record store at the time, so I wasn't alone in thinking that way because the sales really didn't do it. But to see you bring it back to life and go through it that way was fantastic.
Well, you know, it's funny that period in rock, okay, bands that were huge in the 70s, they had to somehow figure out the trend. It's funny, the Beatles never had to transition into a 70s version of the Beatles. So that's part of what keeps them so sacrosanct, is that they never had to. But the big bands of the 70s, they had, many of them tried to make that transition into the 80s. Some of them were extremely successful. Genesis, for example, yes, actually pulled it off, but sometimes it took a member change in order to bring some new perspective in there. And Styx, I always looked at Kilroy was here as their effort to transfer their sound from a 70s mentality into an 80s mindset. And at the time, there were a lot of bands that was bumping up against. But I have to say, let's face it, Mr. Roboto has stood the test of time, that song, and as have most of the Styx music. But that song is also very prescient. It's it is the world that we now live in, and that was really what the beginning of the 80s was portending. Now that theme was there about the Robota. Way back, there were films even from the 30s, I do believe, that predicted this would happen. And here we are, almost 100 years hence. and we are in the thick of it now. So a song like
Hmm.
that really connects to that in such a profound way. Now, when we play it live, in my Styx history class from Tommy and Chuck and JY, I understand that when they did perform it back in, I think it was '82. I'll say it was '82, maybe '83. They played it to track, meaning that they never actually played the song live. So part of it was to bring the song to a live arena and kind of lean into it though with a bit more, basically heavy it up a little bit, which is what we do by
Yeah.
adding more guitars on top of it and just the way that we lean into it, because the recorded version works perfectly well for the formats that most people heard it on, radio, etc., and on record,
Mhm.
perfectly. But the way that the band has evolved now to take a piece like that, we kind of we kind of souped up the engine, if that's still an expression.
It it is for me anyway, but
All right.
so speaking of that, evolving the band, so Gowan is gradually taking over Styx. It appears with Terry on board now. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
you said it, not me. Okay.
yeah.
So you see,
So
my,
it leads me to wonder,
yeah.
one other thing here. I got to know, is there a chance that we will see Sticks and Kilts?
Damn it. That was going to be our next big surprise. Oh, you've ruined it. Uh, oh, but by the way, nice legs.
Thank you.
I was, not that I was looking all that, but seriously good. No, okay. So there's a couple of parts here to what you're bringing up here, Adam. First of all, part of me wearing the kilt is so that because on the internet, when people see pictures of the shows, the next day on Instagram and
Mhm.
etc., a good way to delineate that I'm performing in a Gowan show and not a Styx show is simply to put on my kilt, which is
Ah,
my native dress.
right.
From
Yep.
Scotland, myself,
Mhm.
and just generally speaking, as far as my brother joining the band, that was something that just kind of happened so naturally in that when we were faced with having to make the decision of who to bring in. Todd Circumman played in my solo band from 2010 to 2020. So that's 10 years. We would play about 10 to 20 shows a year of Gowan shows after we did 100 Stick shows. And Terry, being the bass player, the two of them had formed such a great combination as a rhythm section that Terry's name came up almost actually immediately, as being the right person to join the band. And the timing, as far as where Terry's in his own career and all the things that he was doing at the time, he's just thought the idea of me joining Styx now and now being in both bands, in my solo band and also in Styx, it was just embraced by the band immediately. Chuck himself made the comment that, look, he always loved having his brother in the band, the Panazzo brothers, even though brothers do fight, there's still something
Mhm.
about that of having that little familial connection in there. And he went, yeah, we had the Panazzo brother era, and now it'll be the Gowan brothers. So, and the audience,
No better perspective than his. Yeah, that's
yeah,
great. Yeah.
actually, he was the ultimate arbiter, and he and JY and Tommy, obviously. But I mean, Chuck, since it's his instrument, that Terry's
Yeah.
taking over, he really loved the way that he really does play the parts extremely well, and Chuck feels that his legacy is intact with Terry being in the band.
Excellent. Excellent. That is so important to do that because the brand is good. We're now at a point where a lot of bands like Styx are going to have to make the call
Yeah.
eventually that their brand is bigger than they are. And I bring that
Yeah.
up only because a few weeks ago I interviewed Mark Dawson of the Grassroots.
Okay.
Now the Grassroots doesn't have any original members.
Right.
The last one who was the lead, who owned the brand basically said to Mark, "You're the next generation. You're the guy who's going to be singing and playing and take this thing in."
Yeah.
And there's some grief about bands when they do that, as you said, personnel change like with Yes. And
yeah, it can be gut wrenching for people who've followed the band all the way along. But as you point out, it's likely inevitable. I mean, I bring this up quite often. First of all, I I remember as a teenager, when Peter Gabriel left Genesis, I thought, well, that's the end of that. And then I discovered that it wasn't the end. There was this whole other fantastic chapter that I didn't know that the drummer was a superstar, you
Yeah.
know. But I found out, and then I found that the Peter Gabriel solo records, I was so grateful that they happened because I don't know that they would have had he stayed in the band. So I got two bands out of one. So that's just me as a fan. The other one I bring up quite often is that the last time I saw the Rolling Stones, and I saw, struck me during about halfway through the show, I'm looking at Ron Wood and I'm thinking, he's every bit as much a Rolling Stone as Keith and Mick and Charlie, when Charlie was still playing. And he's the third guitarist in that role. And I thought, it's the spirit of a band. You can call it a brand, but really it's the spirit of that band that if they can survive intact in some way, something as seismic as a member change, then if the spirit of the band survives, the band does survive. I also quote Rick Wakeman from back in 1990. I remember reading an article that baffled me at the time, and now it makes perfect sense. They asked him, do you still consider it yes when it's not you and Steve Howe and John Anderson Squire and even Bill Bruford or Alan White? Yeah, how do you feel about the other lineups? He said, I feel absolutely fine about them. And I thought, oh, that's an odd thing. I was reading it, and I think it was a Melody Maker or something. And they said, well, I mean, but do you still consider it yes? He says, well, I look at it this way. 200 years ago, there was an orchestra called the London Symphony, and they played Beethoven. And 200 years from now, there will be a London Symphony, and they'll play Beethoven. And 100 years from now, there will be a Yes, and they'll be playing Yes music, and it will be Yes. And it comes down to how your thinking is. If your thinking is malleable enough to see that that's a reality, that this music that came out in the last half of the 20th century, rock, and particularly classic rock, is the great musical statement of the last half of the 20th century. The music will survive. And the bands, if the handoff is done, one at a time or whatever it is from the originators to the new people, it's really up to the audience as to whether they can embrace that or not. We're out with Foreigner. Foreigner make no secret of the fact that none of the guys that are playing with the band right now were on any of the classic records that they made, but the handoff was done through Mick Jones and through other members, I do believe. And the audience embrace them and love them because they do it authentically and they do it with heart and soul and spirit and all of those things. And I have to say that Styx, after 20, I'm in my 26th year now playing in the band, that we've obviously, the test of time has proven we've made that transition has come intact. And that's also, as I like to emphasize, we are the band we are because we are the culmination of every member that's ever been in Styx. And that's got to obviously include John Bonazzo, Chuck's brother, and John Shalusky, Dennis DeYoung, Glenn Burtnick, Ricky Phillips, So it's, we're all the culmination of those guys' efforts.
Because it's all about the music. Yeah. That's what does it.
It always has been.
That's what makes that culmination. Yeah. It's funny you brought up the idea of 100 years. Our founder, Rob, says we named Masters Radio because our view was these artists, last half of the 20th century, classic rock, pop and soul, are going to be played in 100 years by people thinking about music of this era. They're going to be the Beethoven. They're going to be the Rachmaninoffs of this time.
Look, I sit here every day playing, right now I'm working on another Scott Joplin piece. And I was just at his house.
Oh, cool.
Houses he lived in St. Louis just about a week ago. And here I am, we're over 100 plus years since he left the planet. And I'm still playing his pieces and learning them, etc., because I love that era of ragtime. I'm also playing, Debussy and Beethoven, and I'm also playing a little bit of, the odd time I'll play a Sinatra piece from the 50s, and then, of course, into my own era of rock music. I play it all, and I do tons of my own material as well. So it's all part of the whole musical arc that has enriched our lives so much.
Absolutely true. Speaking of your own material, any solo work coming out from you or any collaborations we should be looking for?
Yes. So I started working on a new solo record about 10 years ago, and it's ready. The thing is this, I don't want to just throw it out there. The problem with the internet right now is it's very scattered. And even record companies that have offered to put them out, to put it out, I'm reluctant to not have enough time to promote it. So I don't want to take my eye off the ball with Styx. We're in the midst of making another Styx album, because the last
Right.
two have done so well for us, and we're in the midst of that right now. So I don't want to just release a solo thing on the side and not properly promote it and go out and play it and connect with people over it. So I've got it sitting there, and I'm looking forward to the day when it comes out. But in the meantime, Styx is my top priority in the recording side of things.
Okay, so we got something new coming from Gowan and from Styx, it sounds
Eventually, yes. Yeah.
like. Yep, very good.
Oh, yeah.
Very good.
All fingers crossed. Cross them all.
Always, yes, yes. Don't cross them up too much. You got a show tonight. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for
It's
that.
actually good practice, I imagine. Yeah. So
Oh, yeah.
all right, let's see. I think the issue of getting new music out there is going to change over time. And
Yeah.
one of the things we're wrestling with now is Udio, Suno, all these create your own music tools on the internet.
Yeah.
And we're starting to see, and you hear from Rick Beato, you hear from Bob Lefsetz, you hear the various pundits in the music business
Yeah.
denigrating this. And I think it's because there's been a schism between the technology people and the music creative people. Technology and creatives have embraced each other for a long time, and in certain segments of the music business, they always have too.
Yeah.
EDM, stuff like that.
Mhm.
But I think what we really want to see is, as we saw in the early 80s when drum machines came out, the only people who could really make the sound good were drummers. And so it's going to take someone like, if I want to make a song that sounds like a Styx record,
Yeah.
wouldn't it be great if I could go into a tool like Udio and do what it is I need to do, and then hit a button on the internet and it goes to a member of Styx who listens to it and goes, yeah, but you could just do this and you could just do that. And they send a button saying, submit that. And, obviously the appropriate dollars and cents arrive in the appropriate bank accounts. But that way it's a collaborative musical engagement, artist and fan. Right now we can do selfies,
Yeah.
right? Can you imagine when we can do music together?
Mm. It's a very deep subject, quite frankly, because but it harkens back to the historically, whenever something new is invented, all right, there are great benefits and great drawbacks that it brings along with us. And I'm going right back to the industrial age and what the steam engine did to the horse. I mean, you gain something, you lose something. There's I've heard some of the you're referring mostly to the AI type inventions that.
Yeah, right.
So to my mind, to take a broad view, I would say if it continues to get people interested in, not just interested in music, but to keep music in their lives and to begin to discern what is authentic from what is inauthentic, or I suppose how to emulate. Much like, okay, here's another example. There used to be great master painters who would leave some paintings unfinished by the time they died, and often their students would finish them. So there's something to that. Now because sometimes they can end up being great. So there's a possibility that something of that nature could suddenly make people who are dead against it suddenly go, no, that was good. That finished that off and did a really great job with it. Not unlike, okay, for example, it's just, I think every case is going to be have to be weighed on its own merits. Okay. I think the potential for misuse is very high. And I think we'll see probably more of that at first until it's figured out how this can be done, where the humanity remains and the machines are relegated to their place. Not unlike what you said about drum machines, And I brought up Genesis, where there were a lot of drummers that were threatened by drum machines coming in, there were other drummers who embraced it and went, "Oh, here's a way of enhancing what I can do." I worked with one of the greatest ever, Jerry Murata, who incorporated the drum machine into what he does the relationship between the two was like, this just works, and the same with Phil Collins and a good number of them. So like I say, it's in the right hands, it might do great things, and in the wrong hands, there's a lot of wrong hands. It'll do some damage.
Yeah, I think coming from the technology world, I've seen so many things come up that you're right are misused at first.
Yeah.
Mostly because people, technology always precedes ethics and law by a little bit because it takes a little while to figure out the damage, to see and figure out the damage.
That's right. Just like the laptop computers that we're speaking on right now,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Obviously, they've destroyed a lot of lives, and they have enriched so many lives. So
the internet was designed to sell porn and gambling, So it's, it really is, and look what we've done with it since. But I do think ultimately there's more good than evil, right? So ultimately, I think it'll work to your benefit as well as to the fans' benefit. That I think it's another opportunity for engagement.
Yep, might.
All right. Well, we have been speaking with Lawrence Gowan of Styx, and are you playing tonight?
We are playing tonight here in Concord, in near San Francisco.
Yep. Know it well.
Yeah, a great venue, and we played here many times in the past. And it's going to be a spectacular evening, I can tell you.
I'm sure it will be. They are doing the Renegades and Jukebox Heroes tour with Foreigner and with John Waite.
Yeah.
Not to be, and none of those people are to be missed. And if you get a chance to go see them, do so. Also, they have a souvenir album, both out of digital outlets as CDs and also as an album, as an LP. Yeah. Right, a picture vinyl that you can purchase at the events, as well as I understand it. And so it has been a treat speaking with you, Lawrence. And I wish you the very best of luck. And I hope we'll be seeing you at the end of July.
All the best. Thanks to all the listeners, viewers of Masters Radio, and continue on with your great efforts. And hopefully we'll do episode 3 will be coming up in a while.
Count on it, sir. Thank you so much.
All right, Adam. Cheers.